How was your guys' holiday? Did you have a good time with your family? Back to work? Are you still off? Let me know. So this is super low key. It's like me getting a chance to just chat with you guys, but also help you. I bless my family with love. That's kind of interesting. That's the front of the card. If I want love and acceptance from my family, then I must have love and acceptance for them. It's an interesting card to get after the holidays, huh? Oh, Joyce said, no holiday. I'm in Miami, no holiday and no vacation. Well, that's too bad. You need to take a little time for yourself. So part of it, like, so I told my dad yesterday, I'm like, I got an email I want to send out. And he's like, why aren't you taking the day off? And I'm like, well, I have taken time off. I'm ready to get back. I like what I do. So like for me, it's kind of fun. And I wanted to be here with you guys. So I want to make sure you knew about it. So I sent off an email yesterday. All right. So file folders. This is what I want to share with you guys. Hold on one second. I got to grab my box. When I create, so there's a lot of different ways to do filing. And I'm going to share some of my preferred methods. And also like when people ask me, because that's actually something people ask me all the time. It's like, I don't know what to do with my paperwork. And I'm like, okay, well, this is all in my opinion, filing is preference. These are my opinions. And then you build this, because everything I teach is based off what do you want and designing it around your business, right? And so some people prefer, I think I'm actually going to just pull my files out and share with you them. I think that would be easier. I have my own method. I'm just organizing my papers a little bit better. So for me personally, I do mine where I have like whatever bank that I work with or whatever bank I have. Like this is like actually what I do. So I'm giving you guys legit like what I do. I go with my bank first and I like file, like I buy files, folders, like filing labels. They like this style. I don't know do any of you guys use this? I like these because I'm eccentric enough that I like them to be really like clear and easy to read. Let me see if I got one. Oh, like here we go. Like I'll talk about this, but I have like one for cash receipts and I have one for different things. So we'll talk about kind of how mine play, like how I use them. Paperless as possible. Okay, that's good. So I'm in my 30s, but I'm old school. Like I like the paper. I know some people like the cloud stuff, but have you ever put something somewhere and then you can't find it virtually? You could do the same thing, I guess, in paper, but I usually don't. Color code entry. So for me, I have more than one entity, more than one. I have like my personal filing. I have my husband's business. I have my business, and then we have rentals. So I'm going to talk about kind of how I do each of those because they're different business models and how I keep my filing. All right. If you guys are interested, I thought that might be fun. I personally have a folder in the front and I have my bank, and I do my checking and savings in one. Sorry. And I have it, hold on, I got to grab it. So what I do is I like reinforced folders too. Talk about the technicals, because if you don't get like reinforced, they get kind of flimsy over time. Do you guys ever have that? So Vicki says she scans everything QuickBooks. That's good. I do some, but I still like paper. Like I'm just a paper. Like to me, it's quicker and easier just to file it. And then when I want to go back and find it, I can. But that's me. The thing about scanning stuff and putting it to QuickBooks is if you ever move computers, it can't always like, sometimes it gets a little tricky syncing things. So for me, I like reinforced. I'm just giving you guys what I like. Okay, so that's just what I'm sharing because they get firm. Rhonda says she has 5 entities. So what I do is I color coordinate every business with one color per year. So what I do is I go back into my file, I pull up my drawer and I go, okay, which colors did I have last year? And I always try to switch them up. That way, if I have different files on my desk, say banking, and I'm doing all my bank statements, I can easily tell like which one. Or when I pull out my file drawer, all orange, in this example, they were all orange. I don't know if they look orange to you, but they're actually orange. And so it was easy for me to tell like that was one business within my file drawer, and then a different color for the next business. And I do that accordingly. So that's one thing that I do to separate them. I worry of fire or water leaking will ruin everything. QuickBooks is great to scan. Yeah. So everybody has difference in it. I'm sharing with you what I do, which is I'm still paper. All right. So, okay. So I do my bank first. And then what I do behind that is I do vendors. And so vendors, I call them vendors because that's what you guys know them as in QuickBooks, the places I spend money is what I do next. All right. So what I do is I usually do like a miscellaneous. I don't do like A, B, C, D just because I don't personally have enough receipts for that. So I'll do like A through whatever section. And then I do the business entity below it. So like, here's an example for my husband's business. I'll show it to you. Wait, let me see. Can you see it? My file got a little bit crinkled by the end of the year. They get a little bit, but this is like the vendor. So I do A through whatever. And then behind it, I do each individual vendor that I pay often. Like, so my husband has a construction business and he buys hardwood flooring. And this is one of the places he buys his supplies. And so they actually send me statements, right? And so for me, what's in here, it would be like a statement and then the paperwork behind it. And I put the entity structure and the year so that if I go back and have to look something up, I know what year it's for. And then, so I do that alphabetically. So I might do like A through G or A through E or whatever, like D, whatever, only A maybe. And then that's miscellaneous. And then the ones I pay on a frequent basis or they have an account have their own folder. Does that make sense? Are we good? And then like credit cards have their own file. And then I have a cash receipts folder, and I recommend it if you do a lot of cash receipts, because then you can find your cash receipts quickly and easily. Some people file them by, so what I personally do is I stick all my cash receipts in there, and then I create an Excel spreadsheet and I summarize it. I taught you guys that. If you don't know, I have that, I'm pretty sure on my YouTube channel. If not, it's on my blog. And I summarize, like, I spent it here on this date, and this is the type of expense it is. And I categorize it like if it's fuel or meals or supplies or whatever it is, I categorize it that way. But I keep a cash receipts folder. All right, let me put these away and then I'll get the next step. So I do that all the way through Z for the vendors. Miscellaneous, and then the primary vendors get their own folder. Then I have a customer folder, and you could do a customer folder by customer. You could do it the same way, A through Z. You could have one folder for everybody. It depends how many invoices you do and if you even print your invoices or if all your invoices go through QuickBooks. So my husband, with his hardwood flooring business, he would invoice customers like through Word or something because he did not want to learn QuickBooks. And so he pre-did his invoices, and then I would re-enter them into QuickBooks. And so I would take the invoice that he created and stick it in my folder, and then leave the one I created in QuickBooks, right? All right, and then for employees, I create each employee to have their own folder for payroll that I process, and then I have, this is just the order I personally do things in. I have a folder for IRS, and then because we're in the state of California, I have a folder for EDD. And the way I do that is I do each payment that I make to them, like prepayment, if that's monthly or weekly or biweekly or whatever, semi-monthly, or quarterly. And then on the top of it, I put the quarterly reports. And that is my folder. So I have one for each. One for EDD and one for IRS. Yes, I want to see your YouTube channel. Okay, well, I can show you guys my YouTube channel in a minute. Or towards the end, I'll come back and we'll do that. Maybe what I can teach you guys to do is how to search it. Because a lot of times people don't know how to search my YouTube to find videos on topics they want. Would you guys like to see that? Let me know. All right, and then I have a folder that I keep for insurance. And the way I do my insurance folders, because I don't mix that with my regular vendors, I actually have a separate folder. And then I'll put the date range for the policy period, because usually your insurance is not like a January to December situation. It's like mid-month. Yes. I want to see you. Okay, I'll show you that. And then I have what I consider miscellaneous for every business. And in miscellaneous, is things like fictitious business name, right? Because you only have to file that every so many years and renew it. And for my husband, his contractor's bond, I had one folder, so I could always go back and look at that. This one says miscellaneous paperwork. These is just like I have like just literally miscellaneous paperwork that didn't really want to put somewhere else, but I want to be able to reference it. And then like in California, I had all my Secretary of State paperwork in one folder. Just this is kind of, and then if I have attorney documents, like my legal stuff that I want to keep track of, I keep that in a separate folder. And those never get pulled out. Okay, and so the legal stuff, like the stuff that I use once a year, but I want to keep like all my Secretary of State or all my fictitious business name, all my attorney documents, and then I have like the original, and then so I create like kind of like the original files, and then I see somebody raise their hand. Hold on one second, and I'll get to you. And then like for my husband's contractor's license, so he has like a bond, and then he has a license. I had a separate file just for that one. And then IRS, like the original documents to set up, and these are original EDD documents or miscellaneous documents that aren't related to that specific year. So in the back of my folders, so I have banking, vendors, customers, and then kind of like payroll, and then insurance, miscellaneous, and then all the stuff that you basically don't ever want to file that you want to keep to be able to reference, I put towards the back personally, because I don't get into those files that often. What do I do? My personal business is pretty much the exact same. The only difference is I have one client that I do their books for them. And so I have their file, like my customer file for the clients that I have, that I do as reconciliation or as payroll or whatever. I put that in a folder with his business entity name on it. That's pretty much the only difference as far as my files for my business. And then for the rental business, I have a property manager that manages that. So I used to track each location had their own folder, and I did a summary of the report, the monthly report in there, and then put the expenses that I received in there as well. Hold on, I got to go look and see what I do now because I've changed it over time. Sorry, one second. The other thing that you would want a file folder for is loans. So if you have a loan that you pay or a loan you receive payments on, you want to make sure you have a folder clearly marked for that. And usually what I do, or when you buy properties, if you have rental properties, is I write the date I purchased it so I could quickly and easily find it in the future. So now what I do for mine is I actually just have monthly management reports, and I just put like all because I get all my rentals on one sheet. So I just staple like the spreadsheet in the front, and then I staple all the expenditures behind it, and I just do it that way. So I have reference, but everything's in QuickBooks by class for my rentals. I think that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions about filing? Some people file by like type of expense. So some people file by like fuel, and some people and that kind of thing. For me, I don't, or by month. The thing is, for me, I can't find anything. You can do that if it works for you, but for me, I prefer by alphabet, and then I can always go into QuickBooks and pull a report and find the vendor, or by the expense, and then go look for it accordingly, right? So do you guys know that, or do you need me to show that to you in QuickBooks? How you can pull a report that shows you those things. Do you guys get that, or do you need help with it? Let me know. All right. I'm going to quickly check and say hi to the Facebook people because I'm inside Zoom and then broadcasting to Facebook. So I just want to make sure they haven't been like saying anything. And then I'm going to get to your questions. Make sure I see your chats talking to me. Yes, you'd like to see it. Okay. So let me hold on. Let me open QuickBooks. I had a different. Someone asked on my Facebook page recently how to enter in office expenditures. And so I know that's one question that we have. I know we have a couple other. If you have a specific question you want answered, you can pop it in the Q&A inside Zoom. If you're not inside Zoom, you can just pop it into Facebook and I will come by and check it. All right, so let me share my screen. So you guys should be able to see my screen now. Inside, so I do it by alphabet because to me, and then main vendor, because to me that's the easiest to find something. Because I usually know where I spent the money more than what I chose to categorize it to per se. So under the vendors, you can look up alphabetically. But then if you're not sure, you can always go over and say pull a profit and loss based off a time frame. So let's just say for this year, this is my sample file, so I don't know what's in here. And then you're like, what did I buy under books? And then you open up books and you'll see all the places here under name that you spent the money. And then you can go and look, or received money if it's income, because these are income categories. They're expenses and you're like, where did I pay rent expense to? Then you can look it up that way by the report itself. So there were profit and losses by expense or income category. And then you can actually go into the vendor center and look up, I know I paid so-and-so, and you look for them. And if you can't find it, then you could always go under edit, find, and you can search it by different things. You could search it by amount under advanced. You could search it by amount. So you got a lot of searching options within QuickBooks if you can't, for some reason, find your paperwork. All right. So hopefully that helped you. Did that make sense? Let me check the chat and see. Okay. Let me know if that made sense. And then someone raised their hand a while back. I just want to go make sure I answer that question if it was related. I'm only going to make sure I answer questions 2 right this second. They're related to what I already covered. Jeanette, I can't unmute you for some reason. So, okay. I tried, but it won't work. Okay, let's see. Any other hands? Nope. Okay. So we'll lower all those. Let me come back here. Okay. All right. So let me go in and see what questions you guys have. Are you good on how to file? I raised my hand having to do with what I tried to find you again. Somebody, Oregon. It's like a little letters. I raised my hand having to do with what to keep and what to get. Do not keep in the drawer. As far as like, do you mean after so many years, like you keep files for 7 years? Is that what you're referring to? You mean like how long? Yes, no, archiving. Okay, so 7 years. I mean, we can look up, you can Google like the time frame on how long to keep records. Different records have a different time frame of how long to keep them. So I'd recommend just Googling it. I can send you guys a link of where to research all that. I have a client, 1099s. I have a client whose employee on payroll also received for part of the year non-employee compensation. How do I enter this into QuickBooks since they have the same? So one would be employee, right? Okay, hold on. Let me share my screen again. So one would be the employee, and you'd probably process that through payroll, Patricia. The other would be a vendor, and you can't have the exact same name. So probably in the employee center, I would add their middle initial, because the customer, vendor, and employee cannot have the same exact name. They have to vary. And so I'd probably add their middle initial. Okay? Hopefully that helps you. All right, let me go to the questions. If you have a question, yes, you're welcome. If you have a question, you need to pop it into the Q&A section. So Linda's question is, I have to add an S Corp Medical to my employee paycheck. They don't offer medical to other employers. So I set up the payroll item as a fringe benefit and not an S Corp. Is that correct? I have an S Corp Medical. Are you just saying you're adding? I don't do taxes, so I'm not sure what an S Corp Medical is, just to be totally honest with you. So how does fringe benefits show up on W-2? There is a specific section, but I would talk to whoever you work with that does taxes, because that's not it's not my specialty. Sorry. I don't give you I never want to give you guys the wrong advice. I'd rather refer you back to tax professionals, because that's not my specialty. But if you ever talk to somebody and then you want to implement it into QuickBooks, that part I can help you with. Questions not related to files. So if you have time. All right. So Paulette said, I took 5 checks and I'm entering and receiving 5 different invoices. One was, okay, wait, so one thing you guys will learn about me is it's so much easier for me when you come on and you chat to actually answer a question live, because then I can get what your total question is. Paulette, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so
I can hear you.
What is your question exactly?
Okay, I took 5 checks in for 5 different invoices.
Yes.
I ran them through QuickBooks and paid all the invoices in full. And so they made it into my make deposits or record deposits. So
Yes.
they're sitting in record deposits.
Uh-huh.
But then I followed up by using the remote deposit machine from the bank,
Mhm.
and the bank read one of the $1,525 checks. They read it as $1,500. So I'm out of balance $25. So I can't make that record deposit because I'm going to be out between QuickBooks and the bank. So how can I fix that?
Okay. So are you going to get the $25? Like, is the bank going to correct that later, or are you eating the $25 or what?
No, I'm procrastinating. I may just if I can just edit that invoice, if that might be the easiest way to just edit that invoice for $25,
I would
or
edit the deposit. So what I would do is, let's just say it's this deposit. Like, I'm going to deposit something. I would come in here, and that's why I wanted to ask you, are you going to get the money back? Because you could put it, so what do you put it to? You could put it to bank service charges if you want. You could put it to like, there's a lot of different ways you could choose to record it. Just kind of depends if you're going to get paid back or not. So what you could do is, let's just say,
well,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. You can give me a couple of options.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what you could do is, like, just say you're going to put it to bank service charges. When they correct it, you could put it back to bank service charges because the customer paid the full amount. The problem exists at the bank, not at the customer. So I would never change the actual customer invoice. That's my perspective on it. What I would probably do is do like negative $25 in the deposit. So it reduces the deposit by 25 and puts it towards bank fees, since that's where the problem exists. And then if the bank comes along and corrects it, and you have like a $25 correction, because I'd call the bank and I'd call them before the end of the year so you get it fixed. I would then do another deposit and it go back positive. So then clear it out. And then I would do another one back to bank service charges when they fix it and put $25. I would also put a memo in, this deposit was deposited for this amount. And then when it's fixed, deposited for this amount. That's how I would handle that. You could also put it to
so I would go ahead and drop in the whole deposit.
Yep.
With the with the less 25, no, with the additional $25, and then so I have five received from. I have 5 clients. Then I go in and I put in a bank service charge, just like you have.
You have to do the deposit as a negative. Yep, just like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I remove the 25, and then I balance. So now my customer, my QuickBooks and my checking account are going to balance. I didn't realize I could do that.
I know, it's a trick.
And then
magic.
And then if my customer, see, the customer botched the check. They wrote the $25 below the line.
Oh, so it wasn't a bank problem per se. It was actually the customer short paid you.
No, it's the customer. They put the $25 below the line, right above where they sign it.
Okay, perfect. Then I changed the payment, and they owe you $25. That's how I would actually do that. I didn't get that fact originally. So if that's the case, I go back to the receive payments screen. I'd find where they paid me, wherever this is just example. I would change this to like $4,975 or whatever the amount is, like $1,975 if it was supposed to be $1,000, or you got $1,000, right? So I change it to $1,000 is what they paid you. And then I would deposit into the bank the way the bank gave it to you.
So, but what is going to, okay, so I have my, the smaller make deposit screen up. So that's still going to be, still going to show.
You have to change the receive payment first, right? You got to go backwards and you got to find the receive payment where they paid you and go back and change that transaction to $1,000. The check now becomes $1,000 in here instead of $1,025.
Okay.
And then the decision is whether you want to write off the $25 that they short paid you, or if you want them to write you another check for the $25.
Okay, I'm sure they'll write another check. Okay, so by my fixing it in customer payment, then is that going to fix it on make deposits? That screen that still has it
because
will?
where that comes from is in the screen. So It only can give you a deposit to make from the amount you've received in this screen.
So it's not going to have two deposits. It'll just correct the one.
Yes. And since you haven't already recorded it, you can just fix it here. It will move it there, and the customer will show they still owe $25.
Great. That's wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See, that's why I talk to you guys, because I always assume what you mean, and then it's hard for me to understand it. All right. Thank you, Paula. Have a great day. All right. So then we answered her question. Let's go to the next one. Anonymous. I can't hear you now. What happened? I don't know. Can everybody else hear me fine? In the chat, can you just be like 1 if you can hear me fine? The person in Oregon's girl. We're geeking out on all the detail stuff. I love that. Okay, cool. Paulette, what is verifying the verifying feature? I was advised to use it because I have some negative numbers in QuickBooks. I don't know. I've never used the verify feature, so I don't know what that means. Oops. 1. Okay, they can hear me. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, so Vicky, our accountant did our payroll for the first quarter plus 3 weeks and has stated that she is going out of business. That's a bummer. And will not be sending out the W-2s for the first part of the year. Okay, so is your question, what's the best way to input it all into QuickBooks? Okay, so she finished it. I would do, so the one question becomes, hold on, let me find you, Vicky. The question becomes, did you process the rest of the payroll and did you add that information when you started? Let me just ask you some questions. No matter how much you think your question's clear, there's always factors around it. So it's nothing, I just need more facts. All right, Vicky, are you there? Did you join by audio? Okay, doesn't seem like she joined by audio possibly. So let me give you guys all the things to consider. All right, so Vicky, these are the things to consider. 1, did you process your rest of your payroll in QuickBooks? And if you did, oh, I have no chat, sorry. Okay, so Vicky, that's fine. You are gonna either enter your data into QuickBooks and you could just do like a summary for that time frame. You get a report that tells you everything that they were paid and you can enter it as a year-end transaction in QuickBooks. If you, but normally when you start processing QuickBooks payroll, it asks you when you set it up, did you already pay this person? And if you did, then you enter all the data then. And if you did all that, then you should be fine with all your information should be there. Hopefully that makes sense. If you didn't, and you're not processing your payroll that way, then you may want to consider entering your data, or if you don't want to put all the data and you don't want to process payroll in QuickBooks, you can take the data and just manually enter it. Like you can buy like software to be able to just enter the data and then print it if you don't want to put it into QuickBooks. It's kind of, there's a lot of variables there. Does that help you at all, Vicky? You could just put in the chat yes or no. Marianne, I keep books for a realtor who's doing business as a sole proprietor. Okay. She started to type her question. She typed it again. She is now starting a separate business as an LLC, which I set up as a separate company in QuickBooks. Good. She has put a lot of money into the LLC out of her personal checking account that she uses for her sole proprietor. Okay. How do I code those? So those would be typically contributions. Yes. Most repairs bills for the LLC, would they be coded as owner contribution? Yes. But technically as an LLC, she is the owner, but she's also maybe a shareholder, depending on what type of entity structure, or a member. Usually though, depending on your tax professional, most don't care if you say owner, some do. So you could always just check with their tax professional and see if they care either way. But yes, if they're putting money into the business, it would be contribution or loan if they want it to be a loan. But if they're putting equity into their business, then you could do it that way. Okay, perfect. They said they can hear me now. A quick tip to register a private loan. Thank you. Okay, so I have no or hire. You can help. You can hire me. I have on my site, I have private sessions. I don't do very many anymore, very few, but you can check it out under Work With Me. Okay, which reminds me, I wanted to show you guys, I'm going to take a quick second and let me stop sharing for a quick second. I'll find my blog and I'll show you. I'll show it to you in both places because you could go to either. And okay, I don't know what it's going to be like for me to do YouTube from the other way, but I'll show you. We'll see how it works. Okay, so if you are looking for topics, people don't always realize this, but on my blog, so it's just Candus Kampfer, and you can come over here to blog or blog/QuickBooks tips, or you can come over here to blog. Oh, hold on, my face is in the way. Blog and then tips. Right here I have a search box, and typically you could type in a question like say credit cards and click search. Little pictures, and all my topics that I've done so far will be there. Okay, so that's that. You can find it that way. People don't always realize that. Or if you go to YouTube, let me just type in my name and see what kind of happens here. Okay, so there we go. So you go to Candus Kampfer, and then you go to search, and you type in like credit cards here. People ask me this sometimes, like, how do I search your channel? And you go type in credit cards, then all the videos I've created that are somewhat related to that will show up. Okay, hopefully that helps you guys figure that out. Let's see, what's the next question? Hold on, let me find my questions. Leah, I came in a few minutes late to the show. Files, do you keep hard files or recommend keeping on digital? I'm a hard file person. I have some digital. So to be clear, I mean, I have a digital, but then I also save my digital to my external drive so that if something ever happens, I have them. I have always kept hard copies, but I'm considering paperless. Go paperless if you want. I'm just not a paperless person. I like to literally, I'm like, I know exactly where that is, and I go pull out my file and I know where it is, and that's just my style. So everybody has a different opinion. No, not right now. My husband just came in to say hi. He's like, would you like something to eat? I'm like, no, I'll do it later. Do you want to come say hello to all the people? You could just peek around and say hi.
Hello.
You could just take it in. I'll come in for a while. Not right now. I'm talking. I can't eat and talk. Okay, there. All right. So I have a nice husband. So we've been married 16 years, if you don't know that about me. I got 2 kids. There's a little bit of facts. Okay. How do I show salary allocation into different classes? I want to show that as a salary in splits between different programs. So you literally would have to process your payroll, Tina, when you process the payroll and you pick the class, you would literally have to, let me see if I could show it to you. Okay, so when you're processing your payroll and you're paying employees, it's more work. So you're going to actually need to, I don't know if I even have classes actually set up now that I'm doing this sample for you. Over here where you normally would, you do your class, you actually have to do each individual one. I'd actually have to test it a little bit because I've never tried to do that before. For this nonprofit, for example, salary between admin, you may even have to process different checks because classes don't typically, I'm pretty sure the class is 1 class per check. So you might have to actually do different checks to be able to do that, which would be a real nuisance. I wonder if it might be better almost to do a journal. I don't normally recommend journal entries, but it might be better to process 1 and then do a journal entry to move the expenditures from that 1 class to other classes. I'd have to mess with it. A quick tip to register a private loan. Does that mean how do you enter a private loan? Is that the same thing?
Yes, if you can. And there is no rate, no interest on this one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening to you. No interest rate?
There is no interest rate. It's just a private loan that the company I'm working with is willing to pay every month. That's all. I have no idea how to settle that.
Okay. All right. I do have training. You can always watch loans on my blog and on my YouTube, but I'll show you real fast. It's not hard. The key is when they got paid and you first set up the loan. So you go under list because they received a loan that you owe someone as a liability, a loan someone owes you, is an asset. So if you go under list, chart of accounts, you are muted, just so you know. So if you try to talk, nobody will be able to hear you in case you're like, wait, hold on. But you can put some in the chat. So down here, you go down to, let me move this little box out of the way so you guys can see it on the recording later. Go down to account and click new. And then you can create, in the newer ones, they have loans. In the older ones, they have long-term liability, more than a year. Current liability, going to be paid off within a year. But now they have loan here, so you could just use loan, depending on the version you're using. And then continue, and then you just put the name of the person that you owe, or the entity, or the whatever here. You know, if it's a personal loan, it might be Candus Kampfer loan, and that would be it. And then what you would do is when they gave you the loan, if it was in the point where they gave it to you and you recorded it, you would go record deposits and the account it went into on that date. And then you would pick their loan. Let's just say it's this one. You could put in your memo about it, and then under amount, whatever the loan amount was, $1,000, $10,000, $100, whatever it is, any number. And then you save and close it, and that increases it. If the loan was bought with an asset, then you do a journal. Like, it all depends how it was created. But if the money went into the account, then you would just record the deposit. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Yeah. It's really not that hard. It's just a liability, and you just record the deposit. Okay, let's see. I have a child support payment that was entered year to date, but now is showing as unpaid liability payments in QuickBooks. I need to get rid of it because I already made the payments. So the question becomes, where did you code the payments, Linda? Because if you coded, you need to pay sales tax, you need to pay up here, and anything to do with payroll as far as liabilities needs to be paid down here. And if you haven't set up a schedule, they won't show up, but you can go down to create custom. Down here at the bottom, create a custom payment, pick your time frame, and then your child support will show up there. You can do like a payroll liability adjustment, or you could go back and reissue those checks, and then your reconciliation could be messed up. So the other way you could do it is you could technically write all of them at one time and then do a journal entry to like increase the bank account for that, and then code it back against the wherever you coded the checks originally. You wrote the check to. Hopefully that makes sense. Melissa. Vicki, if that didn't make sense, you can pop something in the chat box and let me know. This does not relate directly to filing, but when I enter a vendor invoice for parts we purchased, if we are all going into the same expense account, do I have to itemize each part or just put it to cost of goods? Memo, customer parts, and amount, since I have an invoice reference back to. So as far as do you need to enter everything, it depends how your QuickBooks is tracked, Melissa. So it depends what the owners want to see or what you want to see, what you guys agree you want to see. And if you're using, so part of doing itemizing, so let's just talk about that for a second. So when you're in here and you go directly to the expense account, it does not adjust the item. But if you put it under the item and you put the detail in by itemizing it that way, it will increase the cost. So if you're using items and you're tracking cost that way, if you're putting it under expense and you are in expense and it's just going to cost goods, you can just do a summary total for cost of goods. You don't have to itemize it if you're not tracking each individual true item here on the items tab. Hope that helps you. Linda said to her question, they are showing as owing because I entered them year to date payroll. So what I would do is if you need to go back, if you wrote paid it, you just need to do an entry where you back to your bank account that you paid it. Or if it's old, then you could technically do an entry back to opening balance. So I would pay it under here, under pay liabilities, like I said, and then custom payments. And then I do a journal entry to adjust back to opening balance to the bank account if you're not tracking everything in there. I think I finished my ideas about file folders, unless somebody has a question about file folders. File folders really aren't that hard. It's really just, in my opinion, creating like a way to find each one. Somebody asked that about file folders. That was really it. It was just mainly like, this is how I do mine. These are ideas for you guys, and then just answer some questions. Unless you have a question about file folders. All right, I think I answered all your questions, Linda, for that. Bye, Marianne. Thanks for being here. She says, I gotta go. Will you be posting this live chat to view later? Yeah, I'll figure out. I'll probably put it on YouTube, and then I'll send it out to you guys. I'll upload it. I'm recording it. My bank has already showed paid. I just need to okay, so I explained how to do that. I would just do opening balance journal entry. Okay. We have a few more questions. Not a lot, but a couple more. And then I need to still check Facebook because I told him I would, and then I didn't. All right. Rana says, I have an LLC and a personal QuickBooks. Is it best to have two separate QuickBooks files, or does it matter if you run them as one? Hope that makes sense. It totally makes sense. If you're going to do that, you need to create classes, one for the LLC and then one for personal. If you commingle a lot, then probably one file is best. Technically, as far as accounting is concerned, it's better to have two separate files and separate bank accounts, and as little commingling as possible is the best way to do that. Not everybody seems to be able to really want to do that. A lot of businesses, they just don't have the cash flow, but it is best if you separate them. Do you have to separate them? Not necessarily, but you would need to set up classes so that you have the business separate from the personal. So for tax time, you can run a P&L by just that class to give it to your tax professional to get the cleanest, easiest records and the least amount of expense for all them having to sort through a bunch of extra stuff. Unless you had like one, but the thing about classes with having business and personal is the nice thing about the classes, then you can see how the business is actually doing, because the whole point of tracking your stuff in QuickBooks, for me, in my opinion, is so that you can see how your business is doing and to be able to manage your business. So if you would need to have classes so that your expenses are accurate, so you can see how profitable you truly are. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. We have a new 1099 vendor in 2018. I have to enter the name and information to 1099. Will QuickBooks find the money and the amount? So the way it works is when you set up a vendor for 1099s, which is what my tip just came out with, is when you're in here, whoever you're on as there, you have to make sure you go here under tax setting and you check mark the vendor. And then you put in their tax ID number, whether that's a social security number or a EIN number, and that is how it knows that they're eligible. You have to literally check mark that for each person. And then based off whatever expenditure, whatever account you pick, comes into what we call the wizard here, and then you go through and you decide which accounts you want linked to a 1099 or not. But the first step. Okay. Hi. So Susan's on Facebook and she says, hi, Candus. Can't listen. I'm in the hospital with my husband. So hope you are recording. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hope your husband is getting better. Does transferring of items affect the balance sheet in QuickBooks? Transferring of items. I'm not sure what that means. Transfer. I'm just reading some questions on here. Transferring of items. Okay. Where can I find your blog? CandusCampfer.com. You just go CandusCampfer.com, and then my blog's right here. And that's where my tips are at. Okay. That was Susan asked that. Perfect. Okay. So let's go to the next one. What's an easy way to categorize vendors by amount of money paid through the year? I would like for this for 1099s under 600 and for creating vendors for upcoming year. I don't think you can, so you don't really categorize them by thinking about your question. I think you could just, instead you could just run a report that tells you how much you paid per vendor. I feel like that would be easier. Trying to see which report would be the best report for you. Well, normally, like what you do is you can run like a 1099 summary or detail and see, or you can run a report. So somebody asked me a question and they said, I want to see all the detail that I paid a particular vendor. And so I said, I didn't say anything to them yet because I don't answer questions through email really anymore because I just get too many. But what you would do for that is I typically would just run a quick report. So I go to the vendor and I'd pull a quick report, and then I would see all the money I ever spent with that person. And it gives you checks, journal entries, anything that journal entry was. Sorry, I was getting a phone call. The journal entry was put in with. Any entry that was put in. Like here, if you did like a quick report, you would see everything. And you could pick a time frame. And then it gives you everything that's ever happened. Whether it's an invoice or journal entry, something that's affecting whatever whatever vendor you're in, is a quick report. That's typically the only thing is it doesn't give you total. It's just a quick report of anything that's ever happened per whatever time frame you pick, all transactions that affect that particular vendor. As far as how can I organize, there's not like an easy way to, like, I wouldn't want to organize my vendor by like 1, 2, 3 or something like that based off how much I paid them. I probably would just pull a report and see how much I spent with them and then see if they're 1099 worthy. You don't have to give absolutely everybody 1099. If you spend money with Costco and you spend over $600, they don't need a 1099, right? And if they're a corporation, they don't need a 1099. So kind of there's qualifications, I guess would say. Oh, she said commingling happens often. That was related to the other. Yes. So commingling happens often. I would do classes. So I go under like edit, set up where you can do classes, and then I'd set up a class, one for the LLC and one for personal. Best though, if you separate it, right? Because the whole reason we typically have an LLC is for legal protection. And if you commingle, the corporate veil, as they call it, can be penetrated. They can qualify as that it's not separate from you and no longer has separation. So legally, it's always best to try not to commingle as much as possible and create it as a true separate entity, truly separate from you. What is the best way to become QuickBooks Desktop certified? I would say through Intuit. Become a pro advisor and then take the test. I don't want to do each vendor. Not quite sure what that means. Yeah, I know you don't want to do each vendor, but you only have to do it if you'll pay over $600. Typically, we know. So typically what happens is anybody who you think you're going to need to pay as a 1099, like as you're paying them money, some people before they'll give you a check are like, I need you to fill out a W-9, I need you to fill out this form. And then they go in and they mark them as eligible. Just because they're eligible doesn't mean they'll get one. If they don't meet the threshold, the $600 threshold, even if you've marked them as eligible, they'll never get one. So they have to be marked as eligible and exceed $600 to get one. The system realizes that. So I would go in and anybody who you think, as you're paying them, they qualify as somebody who would be getting a 1099, they'll only actually get one if they exceed $600. Hi, Candus. Thank you for the webinar. It's just actually just like office hours. But yeah, it's kind of a webinar style, right? It's considered a webinar in Zoom. I also use hard files for expenses, but I download expenses directly from the bank. Great. I don't show classes in my list menu. Okay, so I don't know if I have bank feeds set up for this. I probably don't, but let's see. I don't know if there's bank feeds. Let's see if I try to keep like a couple transactions in here just so I can show you guys. So their classes do show up in my bank feed, but if yours aren't showing up, you can always click add more detail. And when it pulls it up, usually there's a class in here that you can pick. But mine has, Nancy, mine has a class here that you can pick. So I'm not sure why yours isn't showing. It should be. It may be that you don't have the newest version, so make sure it's updated. And then under preferences, you can choose different, there's 2 different styles of the bank feed. I've done a video on that before, so maybe that's something you could use. Maybe that'll help you. What port did you say? So if you have people marked, then when you come into the vendors and you go to 10, sorry, my thing's in the way. If you have them marked, and then if you go in here under vendors and payables, they'll let you know who's eligible or not based off. So right now it's still pulling 2017 because 2018 is not over yet. So you have to do it to like this year, and it will tell you like who qualifies or not based off the system knows. Like use threshold, ignore threshold. Then if you ignore threshold, it'll give you everybody you've marked as a 1099. If you use a threshold, it will only give you who's met the threshold of $600. That's just, you can go under vendor, find the 1099 reports here, or reports, vendors and payables, 1099 stuff. Either place, you get the same reports. Okay. I was told I need to enter adjusting journal entries. I can't remember what question that was for because we're kind of like boom, boom, boom. Nancy, let me go back and see what your question was. I think it had to do with, no, you don't want to do journal entries to adjust for the classes. Is that your question? Because your question had to do with how to enter it. No, you don't want to do journal entries to move it. Yes, I'll look it up. You just want to, so like the preferences, you just go into preferences, and I think it's right here. It's right here. So edit preferences, checking, company preferences, bank feed, and then express. This is the newer version, and then this is the classic. So just make sure you're on the right one. And then also make sure that your settings are set that it always asks you for classes. So under accounting, company preferences, classes, prompt classes, check that too. Make sure both those are set up. Okay, cool. All right, moving on. So another question that I was asked on Facebook is how do you enter office equipment or office, like you're buying some office of furniture. So typically it used to have a smaller threshold that I know of. The threshold now is closer to $1,000 before you capitalize it. In other words, it becomes an asset versus an expense. So it depends how much money you're spending. It also depends on how your business is set up. You can always ask your tax professional what's best for your business. But you would just set it up if it's an asset, usually if it's like a few $1,000s and you're going to depreciate it over time, usually there's a furniture and fixtures office expense, office furniture. You can choose to do that, and it would be an asset, and you would just code it in the check or the credit card transaction, wherever you're buying it. You would code it here to furniture and fixtures as an asset if you're spending a lot of money. If you're wanting to write it off, then you could find like office equipment, not supplies, but probably office equipment. It's a computer, depending on how much money you spend. The reason is because a lot of things don't last 10 plus years anymore. So if it's under a certain dollar amount, you can write it off that year. If you have questions on which way to do it, it's always best to ask your tax professional. I'm probably not today, Linda, going to go through the 1099 wizard. That's a whole training in itself. You could kind of just go through it and go through the process and just click, and you'll kind of see how it works. It's pretty easy. But I'll probably do that as its own separate how to do that training. I feel like it's probably best. There's multiple ways to do that. Right. Yes, Linda's asking, can you run through it multiple times? If you have a question, make sure you pop it in the Q&A itself. That's the best place if you have any other questions and you're here through the Zoom. Yeah, you can go through the wizard over and over again. There's no limit on that. Let me check my chat and see what you guys are saying. How do you find a list of credits a vendor has? There's probably a few different ways. Let's see. It's not something I typically look for. So let's see what. You could do it through like opening balance. So you could go vendor, opening balance, and any credits would be showing on that report. It's one way to do it. So you could pull like vendors by, you could do a few different ways, but you could come here, and then if you only want one vendor, you could customize the report, filter it, go down to the name, find that one particular vendor, let's say ACE, and click OK. And then if you only want to see that one vendor, it would show you that one vendor. You could go to opening balance, or that's unpaid bill detail. You can do AP summary. Like, there's a few different ways you could do it. The other thing you could do, that's probably the best, is just to go in and pull like an opening balance. Anything that's unpaid would be kind of sitting there. That should probably get you what you need. How do you do separate classes? You need to go into your preferences and set up where you can track classes. So it's edit preferences, accounting, company, and preferences. Set up your classes. I have a training on that too, how to set up your classes. And then you go to list, class list, and then you go to the bottom. For some reason, my stuff isn't showing up. Go down here to the bottom and click new. And that's how you show a class list. You can edit it and stuff in there as well. You can add names. Do you find a list of, okay, that we answered that one. I was just going up a little bit. Okay, so you have a question about your personal expenses classifications as shareholder distributions, and then pay the business account. And when paid from business account. Yeah, so if you're paying for personal expenditures through a business, you put them to shareholder distribution, owner distribution, which is an equity account. So if you go under list, chart of accounts, let me shrink this just a little bit. Sorry, my thing is stuck and it won't go. Okay, so you come down here and you create an equity account, and it would be distribution. Owner, or you file new, and it's an equity type, and then you name it, your distributions account. Okay, so that'd be an equity account. And then, so if a lot of people don't realize when you pay for your personal expenditures out of your business, they're not business related, you can't write those off. It's actually you taking money or equity, what they consider equity, out of your business. And then if you put money into your business, then you're contributing equity, you're adding equity in. And then sometimes what accountants will do at the end of the year, they move it out of equity and they do a shareholder contribution or distribution. I'm in the chart of accounts and notice that some of my child support liabilities are in the wrong account. But when I go to change into the correct account, I'm getting a warning. It appears that it's a payroll liability. What do I do then? Well, so it has to do with how you set up your payroll item probably. Right? So you have to make sure that when you set up your payroll items, that you choose your correct account here under where you want like child support to show up. And then you have to do the check as a payroll liability. If you did it as a regular check, it won't pay it down. Did you tell us how to find your YouTube channel? I had to walk away. Yeah, so you just go to YouTube and then you can just type in, you could just go to YouTube itself and type in Candus Kampfer and it will pop up. And then what I said after that, Lisa, was that there's a little search right here and you can type in kind of what you're looking for. It just depends if what you call it is the same thing I call it. It's the only kind of like sometimes hard to find. I'm like, what did I call that? I try to find things I think you guys are going to call it, but sometimes, I don't always know. When I ran the wizard multiple times last year, it showed less and less vendors. Do you know what that was about? Probably based off when you set up the wizard, what accounts you picked. So we'll have to do another training on wizard, but that's a whole thing in itself. It takes a little bit of time to explain. I'll probably do a live next week and maybe the week after. I'll try to do like one over the next few weeks. Okay. Dora, hi Dora. Say hi to Sebastian for me. How do I do a W-2 form? So a W-2 form, you process directly in QuickBooks if you've been paying your payroll that way. So you just go process forms, and just like you do a 941 or any other form, you just find your W-2 and then walk through steps. Dora, do you have my quarterly and year-end forms course? Can't remember if you have it or not. It walks you through how to do your W-2. Actually walks you through how to do your 1099s as well. All right. So it's pretty easy. Just like you do all your other forms, you want to make sure for the W-2, you want to make sure you print your reports, just like I teach you guys to do for your paying your taxes and doing your quarterlies. And then you want to take all your quarterlies and add them up and make sure that your quarterlies match your W-2 before you process them. You're awesome. This is my first time here, and I appreciate all your info. Visiting your YouTube channel. Yeah. So make sure you join. If you're not on the email list, make sure you join my email, because that's when you know when I'm doing this kind of stuff. You can follow me on Facebook. I don't stream live on YouTube as often because sometimes I get kind of like other people than just my community who show up and ask questions that aren't appropriate for what we're talking about. But I'll probably stream live on YouTube in the next couple weeks. All right. So hopefully that answered. I think that's everybody's question. Dora said thank you. You're welcome, Dora. So we've been here an hour, and I know everybody's got other stuff to do. So we'll be back. I will upload this, and I'll send it out to you guys just kind of as a reference. And I think that's it. Did I get everybody? I think so. I think I answered the questions that were posted. Perfect. All right. Thank you for being here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please, I got a please. I don't know what that means.
Hello.
Yeah, I thought I answered your question about the personal expenses.
Well, the actual question I had is that a way to fix paying personal expenses from personal accounts by classifying them as shareholder distributions?
So you mean like you're tracking your personal account in QuickBooks with your business account at the same time? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, for example, personal expenses or business expenses that you did not keep proper records. For example, your phone expenses, your insurance expenses. If you didn't properly keep records to deduct them as business expenses and you pay them from your business account, you just go ahead and classifying them as shareholder distributions. You understand what I mean by personal expenses and business expenses? For example, like office expenses, office supplies, you can immediately say, yeah, they are business expenses and code them as business expenses and deduct them as business expenses in QuickBooks. But when you have other expenses like car payments, car insurance payments, or phone payments, and you don't properly keep track of those expenses, you just go ahead and code them as shareholder distributions to avoid any problems. You understand my question?
Kind of. Like
statement?
for me, I mean, if I had an expenditure that went through my business and I have it through my statement, to me, that's a business expense. So I'm not sure why you're classifying some as like not having proper records, but if you don't think that they qualify as a business expense, then yes, and they go through the business account, you can put them to distribution if you don't think they qualify as a business expense.
And that should fix that problem that you were saying initially when you mix personal expenses and business expenses from your business account, just do shareholder distribution.
Right. So if they don't qualify for true business expenses, but you paid them through the business, then yes, I would do them as a distribution.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. It says, thank you. Look forward to other live Q&As on your channel. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. I got everybody, I'm pretty sure. So so today's thought, I start with a thought and then I end with my thought. Just like wrap it all up. So today's card again was, I bless my family with love. If I want love and acceptance from my family, then I must have love and acceptance for them. Treat others the way you want to be treated. I always tell my son the golden rule, right? So have an amazing week. I will see you guys next week. I will send out a little thing to let you know when I'm going to be going live and answering some miscellaneous questions. And I don't know what topic it's going to be next time. Maybe 1099s, maybe something else. We'll see, kind of based off of how I feel, what you guys are needing at the time. So thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me. I will, the live will be on my Facebook. So you can always find it on my Facebook because we streamed it there. And then I will also upload it to YouTube. And I will send it out in an email to you guys when we get there. All right. When I get it all up, it takes a little bit of time, but when it's all up and ready for you, we will do it. All right. I have to figure out how to, hold on. Let me stop sharing real quick. Okay. There we go. I couldn't see my little box on like how to stop it. So I will see you guys soon. Thanks for being here. Bye.